Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Meta Cafe. Grab your cup of coffee or tea and sit back. Oh, my perfectly chipped cup, but I love this cup. And let's talk about some astrology, some human design, and the gene keys. And oh, I forgot I was going to hold on. I'm going to disappear for 1 second. I forgot that I wanted to pull a card for the new moon. So quick announcement, I am not going to be on air tomorrow morning. And that's because I am going to go play with one of my granddaughters for her play day at her school. They get out of school on the 15th, and every year before play, or just before the last day of school, they have like an outdoor barbecue, and they get to, do face painting and play games and stuff. And she invited me to come with her. So that will be where I am tomorrow morning. So I won't be here. So today we are going to talk about the new moon because tomorrow's the new moon and I don't want to go without talking about that. So let's dive in and find out what's going on today. And then we'll talk about the new moon for tomorrow. And I want to draw a card for us that represents what the new moon will be bringing for us. So good morning to everybody out there. I see Mimi, and I'm not sure who I see here. Cindy Mitchell. Good morning, Cindy, and Colleen. It's good to see you girls out there. And so I'm just getting the cards ready. So when I'm ready to pull, I will be able to do that. In the meantime, let's talk about what's going on today. As we are in the rundown, we are closing out the moon cycle that began with the Taurus new moon back in May. And excuse me. So we are preparing to close out that cycle and begin a new one. And we do that today with a very interesting combination of the contacts that the moon is making. The moon is trining. Remember, a trine is a 120-degree angle between planets. It represents an ease and a flow of the energies. In other words, they like each other. They have similar interests. They have similar qualities, and the energy just flows between them without much effort. And that's the moon and Mars today. Moon and Mars, which is also in a conjunction with the South Node. And remember, we did a lot of work with Mars a week or so ago when it was sitting at gate 41. And then again last week when it was sitting at gate 19, as we're looking at what is this bringing to us, because it's spending, longer period of time in these gates because it's moving retrograde on June 26th. So what we learned at that point in time, just to refresh your memory a bit, is that Mars is sitting in the gate 41 reminds us that all of our wonderful ideas and our fantasies, if they stay up in our head, never come out and join the real world, stay just fantasies, right? And we never really get to where we want to go in our lives or to really get on our life paths. The South Node, sitting at those same energies, reminds us of the same thing. It reminds us to look in this cup, in the cup of your gifts and talents, all the good things that you brought with you into this life, all of your experiences, and is asking whether you are ready to throw that stuff into the pot and use it in a new way in this incarnation. So it's an interesting sort of setup we have. And then as well today, anytime there's anything that's going to be in any kind of configuration with the South Node, it's also going to have some kind of effect on the North Node, because the South and the North Node create an axis in your chart. Let's see if I can draw a quick line through the axis here so people can see what I'm talking about. The North Node is at this end, the South Node at that end. So let's take a look here. So over here we see we have the South, over here, the South Node is conjunct Mars, right? And at the opposite end over here, the North Node sits. So the North Node is in Leo, and the South Node and Mars are conjunct in Aquarius. Thus the reason why the eclipses have been taking place across the Leo-Aquarius axis. And that's because there's a lot of focus then on all things Leo and all things Aquarius. Even that's all in the background of all the other energies as they're lining up and moving through our charts. And they represent to us a call of the heart, right? A call of the heart to bring ourselves back into here where we know where our truth is and where we have this inkling inside of what it is that we're here to do, how we're here to serve in the world. So today, then, if the moon is trine Mars and the south node, it is in a sextile to the north node. Now, a sextile is also a beneficent sort of aspect. It represents a 60-degree angle between the planets, and a 60-degree angle is a little different where the trine represents a flow of energy. The sextile represents the ease of using your gifts and talents in a way that's powerful for you. And it's kind of almost lucky in a way, when you have sextiles in your chart, you're able to kind of wrap your head around the things that you do well, and you may be even doing them unconsciously, because you're able to share of your gifts and talents in that way. So we have a focus then today in really getting some clarity around where am I holding things in my fantasy world and not necessarily getting it out into the world, and am I using my gifts and talents in the right way, in the way that was meant to be used, in a way that serves the higher purpose of my being here on the planet? So it's kind of heady stuff today, right? There's that feeling of, having to move through some things in order to get to where you want to be. Now, of course, those aren't the only things that are happening today. There are some other, last minute sort of transits happening, or things that we've already been, exposed to in terms of the transits, like the sun in a square to Neptune. We've been dealing with the moon and the sun squaring Neptune off and on. And at the new moon tomorrow, it will also be in effect. And that is our attempt to square our ego selves with our spiritual selves, or with our spirit selves, knowing that we have things we have to do here, like we have to pay the bills, right? We have to eat, we have to take care of one another. There are these things that we know we have to do from an ego level, from a body level, to survive on the planet, to be here in the physical, that is. And then there are also these spiritual things that we know to be true, the divine within each of us, and the work that we have to do to express that through the medium of our physical being. So when the sun and Neptune are brought together, we have relative ease and disconcertion about doing those things. Like, we're not able always to see clearly what it is we're here to do, who it is that we're here to do it with. And then our ego gets involved and starts beating us up in some ways about not doing what you're here to do. It can go on. And so we are in that process, kind of like clearing out cobwebs, if you will, to get some clarity about what it is that we want to do. How is it that we want to best serve? Where is it we want to go? And of course, the outer world is creating all this chaos, and it makes it harder for us to see what it is that we're supposed to be doing, what our personal role is. Especially because, if you are someone who watches the news, there is plenty of stuff on the news to keep your mind busy and to keep your soul away from, or to keep your mind away from working with the soul to get what you need to do done here in the planet, or on the planet. So that's an interesting sort of thing that's happening for today. I'll save that for a moment. So let's look at the new moon. The new moon occurs tomorrow at 12:44 p.m. West Coast time. So that makes it 3:44 p.m. East Coast time. And that means we won't be able to visually connect with it, right? It's not a big problem. We just have to visualize where it is and what it's doing. Good morning, Katie. I haven't seen you in a long time. That's awesome to see you out there. And she says, I'm back. I wonder where you've been. Hopefully you've been doing something fun. And anyway, so the new moon every month, of course, represents a portal or a gateway, something that we can move through into a new something, fill in the blank. And is it a new opportunity? Is it a new job, a new relationship? Is it a new way of being? Is it what is it all about, right? And the new moon being in Gemini, it's at 22 degrees 45 minutes of Gemini. So we can round up to 23, or if you like to be like me, it's at, I love seeing this. I love seeing this. Let me see if I can make you guys see this. Can you see those degrees where the sun and the moon are right here? Right up here. Do you see all those twos? Mercury's at 2 degrees. Come on, focus in, camera. Mercury's at 2 degrees of Cancer, and the new moon and the sun are at 22.45 degrees. Sorry, it got blurry there. It was clear for a moment. So we have 2, 2, 2, 2, lots of 2 2s. And also Chiron is at 2 degrees of Aries. Is there any other twos? Remember yesterday when we were talking about the dark moon Lilith? Well, the dark moon Lilith is at 22 degrees of Libra. So we have a number that seems to be repeating itself here. A couple things at 24 degrees even, which if you take 2, you take a 4, it's 2 squared. So lots of focus on the 2. That's kind of fun. So in numerology, the 2 is about relationships. When I think of the 2 in terms of the triple digits that we get, I always think of, and I think this came from Doreen Virtue's work on the angel numbers and what are the angelic messages coming through when we see those digits that are tripled, or sometimes it's quadrupled, or in this case, it is like a signature all over this chart. Good morning, Kristen. It tells me that our message is about don't quit before the whatever it is that you're trying to create pops up above the surface. Don't quit too soon. I guess that's one way we could look at this. So, when you plant a seed and you are waiting and waiting and waiting for it to germinate, and then up it pops, and you start to see the first leaves of whatever the plant is, and the first little stalk starts coming up. That's essentially what the number 2 is saying. Don't quit before the seed breaks through the surface, right? Don't give up on yourself. And the 2 always reminds me as well of love. And that seems to be a huge theme in this new moon. So that was a great segue, right? The 2s about relationship, about love, about not giving up on yourself or on what it is you're trying to create in your life, because the things are just about ready to pop through the surface and you're going to be able to see the results or the effects of the efforts that you've been putting out there. So when I decided to look at the new moon, I decided to go to the gene keys, because the gene keys give me probably the deepest connection to the energies that are popping up for us at the new moon. And the moon and the sun both will be sitting at gate 12 during the new moon tomorrow. And gate 12 is a really interesting gate in human design. It sits right on the throat center, and it's kind of off to the right side, leading down toward the, or let's see, if you're looking at your chart, it's actually on the right side, leading down toward the emotional center, down toward the solar plexus. And it is a gate that connects us to super consciousness. So when you're working with gate 12, or if you have it defined in your chart, you are often someone who's bringing forth information, streaming it in, if you will, from the super consciousness. I always seem to link this to the galactic center, because literally it sits right across from the galactic center in the chart. And the galactic center being the source of all of that stream coming into our planet is where you are seeing the connection to super consciousness. And that may mean you're bringing in new ideas. It may mean that you're saying things that you don't have any clue where they came from, but they're profound. And this happens without your consciousness being engaged, because it's the super consciousness, right? It is above that. It is superior to that. And I don't mean that in a hierarchical way. I just mean it is happening above and beyond what your conscious mind knows about. Now, there are people that channel with gate 12. Now, channeling sometimes is a little more conscious process, as in some people who are channeling purposefully invite another entity into speak for them or on their behalf, or to use their voice. But with gate 12, it is mostly coming with no real realization of on your part where it's coming from. And people that do this are often, saying these things to you, and you're like, and they might be saying, wow, I don't know where that came from, right? They don't know where that came from. Well, it literally is coming from super consciousness, but it comes from a connection to the energy of love. So let's look at the 3 levels that we have going on in this particular gate or gene key. It is the shadow of vanity, the gift of discrimination, and not the kind that we initially think of in setting us apart from one another. And the gift, the highest expression, the siddhi, is purity. So when we are looking at then gate 12, we are looking at the new moon at this particular place in your human design or in your gene keys hologenetic profile. We're looking at the shadow of vanity. And good morning, Suzanne. And before I jump into that, let me take a look at comments out here. Beautiful morning, ladies, she says. That's nice. Cindy, I'm going to display this, says, oh, wow, I most certainly need to hear about that. 2 makes a lot of sense. Just when I am really ready to give up on my venture here within my own. Oh, boy, Cindy, I don't know where you and I have both been, but I have been circling that drain even up until this morning as I'm getting ready to come on air. I am like ready to jump ship, and I don't mean kill myself, but I mean like this is getting hard, right? This is getting too hard. Life is getting hard, and I just want it to be easy. And so I was thinking along those same lines. Katie says, just been insanely busy, picked up another job, finally have some time in the mornings again. Missed you, Janet, and this to start my day. Oh my gosh, you're sweet. And thank you very much for joining us. We've missed you as well. And Kristen says, good morning. And I think that is the last of the comments that I missed. Susan Bronlin, good morning, Susan. I hope everything's going well for you. And so let's go back to the gene key 12. The gene key 12 is actually pretty personal to me because next week when I have my solar return, it is the sun for me at gate 12. And so I live this gene key. I live this shadow. I live this gate, or I live this gift. I live this siddhi, or the potential for the expression of this with the energy of love. So vanity first is a really interesting word, don't you think? Because it reminds me of what was that song by Carly Simon? You're so vain. You probably think the song is about you, kind of thing. Well, vanity really is a love. It is the love of the self. But more than that, it takes it to the negative in that it can be the love of your own uniqueness. And in that, it sets you apart or above other people. So the energy in vanity is really something that's kind of insidious, right? Because there is always that sort of pervasive energy behind the scenes of that love of self, but taking it to a point where it is a vanity as opposed to, purity. And remember, I always tell you guys with these gene keys that the energy of purity lives within the gene key of vanity. Whatever the shadow is, the highest expression of it lives there too. And you could think of it as a spectrum where on one end you're expressing the more negative or the lower frequency of it. And at the other end, you're expressing the higher frequency of it. But they are nested in another. So vanity, discrimination, and purity are all nested within one another. And these are different levels of the energy of love. So really, vanity in the shadow is about learning to love yourself. So we have the first level of love here. And then as we move into let me back up for a second, because vanity is also, or this gene key, gate 12 in human design, is also a part of the ring of trials in the codon rings that I've shown you pictures of. The codon ring of trials is one that it's like the mythic hero's journey, right? There are 3 big quests that humanity is overcoming, and the gene key 12 vanity is the final trial. And as Richard Rudd describes it in the book, is that it's the final ring of trial, and it will dog you until your dying day, basically. Because even looking for vanity is an act of vanity. So you almost have to see it, not see it, but know that it's there. And until you can reach the siddhi of purity, it will always be there. So kind of an interesting quest, don't you think? It's like the mythic journey that never was, right? Or the one that you can never get to the end of. Great question, Cindy. It is the Gene Keys book, right? Written by Richard Rudd, Unlocking the Higher Purpose Hidden in Your DNA. We talk about this a lot here. If you buy a copy of it, it is not going to look like this. It's going to be white and have a dragonfly on the front with the DNA, I think, also on it. But mine is very old. I think I got mine back in 2013 or maybe early 2014. And since then, it's had another printing with a different cover on it. So going back to this new moon, then the potential here for us is to recognize vanity and to kind of transmute that vanity into love of the self. And that love of the self takes us also into the love of our human brothers and sisters, right? The love of the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom. It begins to show us how we are all alike, and that how love energy is what binds us all together. It is a great book to get. Cindy, she says, okay, I think I have that one on my list to get, and that will help. Yes, definitely. It is the consummate book for contemplation. And as I've told people before, it is not one you can read cover to cover. I did not attempt to do that because luckily I read the first few pages of the book where he says, this is a contemplation. And my suggestion to everyone is that you begin with your conscious sun and read that gene key first, because that's really who you are the most, right? That all the energy of your chart is funneling through the conscious line sun. So look at the conscious line sun in your chart, or in the Gene Keys book. So discrimination, the gift through this portal we're about to walk through, is the energy, not discrimination where we note differences between us, like I'm white and you're black, or you're Hispanic, or I'm female, you're male. Not that kind of discrimination, but it is an inner knowing of kind of an inner compass connection of what is good for you, knowing what is good for you and what is not good for you, what is healthy for you and what is not healthy for you, and being able to discriminate. I call it my bullshit meter. Mimi and I were talking about that yesterday in a kind of joking way. But the bullshit meter here isn't about seeing, it's being able to see what's authentic, being able to even see where you are out of your own integrity, where you're not being authentic in your own world, where you're not being authentic to yourself, to your own wishes. But more than that, being able to see through the experiences, the people that are in your outer world, and whether or not it is healthy for you to be in that situation, to be in that place, to be doing that work, to be doing it with those people, and being able to discriminate, but with love, right? Not making them wrong, just recognizing that this isn't the best power position for you to be in, for personal power, right? Because sometimes we give away our power and just to be in a relationship, or just to be in that workplace, or to be with those people. And that, of course, then is undermining your ability to be authentic, right? So it's called to be authentic, to love yourself enough to know that some things and some people are not authentic to you, but not making them wrong, loving it all anyway, but just steering yourself in a different direction. So I hope that makes sense. Let me know if there's something I need to clear up on that for you guys. Now, the siddhi here is purity. And purity is kind of a tricky, elusive word, right? It is about so many things, right? Purity would suggest, if it's about the energy of love, it is about looking from the perspective of the divine. And if we think of the shadow, or the lowest expression, it is looking from the ego. But yet within the ego is the ability to connect to the divine. And you guys may have noticed in your human design charts, if you've gotten them, let me see if I can find my sample one here, that there are two centers. Can I do this one? Oh, yeah, that's my sample. Here it is. There are two centers that sit very close together here, which is the identity center. And then this little one here, which is called the will center, or we call it the ego center. And sometimes we call it the heart center. So these two centers at one point were combined. They were one center. And in our human development, we needed to be able to individualize, to become individuated. And so somewhere around the dawn of the scientific age or the age of reason, we began to pull away from this oneness. And it was probably earlier than that even. And we became separate, right? So engaged in our human design is this energy of separateness. But there's a channel that connects the two right here. The channel that connects the two is through the channel of initiation or awakening. And it's a very shamanic kind of channel. It is a very deep connection from some form of awakening or shock that drives us to the inner compass where universal love sits. So through this spiritual work that we do on the planet, through this mystic journey that we take, we combine and bring back together those two centers. And each of us doing this it's an individual quest, right? It's an individual journey. And so in our human design, we can see then that we're designed to take this journey. It begins at gate 54. Remember, we just talked about this the other day. It begins for the quest for enlightenment, takes us through the mystic circuit, joining up the soul and the ego right here through the channel of awakening. And so what happens if you're not connected between these two centers? I'm going to say this again for everybody. Everybody has all of the human design, all of the gene keys. Even if it's white in the chart, you still have it. You just experience it differently. When it's defined, you have a very defined way of experiencing the energy in that gate or in that channel or in that center. If it's open, the energy of your experience is inconsistent, right? It's not always going to be the same. So for example, with someone who has this whole channel, they are probably people that are already on a very fundamental path to some form of awakening in their life. Maybe they've decided to walk the shamanic path. Maybe they've become ordained as ministers and they're walking that kind of a path. It's defined for them. And often that arises out of some kind of shock, an accident, a near-death experience, the death of a loved one. Many different things can create the shock that awakens us to the need to take this journey. For people who have it undefined, various times in your life, things may happen, right, that bring you to that energy. And it can be so inconsistent that you don't even really notice it, but it is always happening, right? We are always walking the path of mysticism or the mystical path. Some people walk it consciously. Some people walk it unconsciously. Some people are walking it in a defined way, and others are more inconsistent in the way that they walk this talk or they walk this channel. But everybody here on the planet is walking it in some way or another. Literally, there are probably very few people on the planet that have not had in some way, shape, or form a mystical experience, whether that came from an aha in the moment of need, something showing up, a dream, a profound inner knowingness that put you in the right place at the right time with the right opportunity, or saved your life from something, saved someone else's life from something. I mean, we are all connected to this kind of energy in the chart, in our beingness. So it's just how we experience it that is different, that is unique for everybody. Okay, so when you see white, think inconsistent. If you see defined or colors, think definite way of experiencing it. So And of course, there are varying degrees of that in between too, because sometimes you can have a defined experience in the gate on an open center, and that adds some flavor and color to it as well. And literally, we talk about this in the morning. We talk about all these different things, but the only way to know for sure for you is to get a human design reading and have an expert tell you what this all means for you, or teach you what this means for you, right? We can pull these little bits and pieces out, and we can think that we're seeing the whole picture, but we're not. You're not seeing the whole picture until you actually sit down with someone that can decode your chart for you. So, in the meantime, though, the bits and pieces help fill in the blanks. Okay, so where was I? Purity. Okay, so literally with purity, it is about the divine falling in love with you. So it is where we bring the two frequencies together in a very powerful way. And not that the divine doesn't love you anyway. That isn't what I mean, but it's, just pulling this all together and being able to see that there is something higher at work in your life and in the universe, right? Okay. So gate 12 then being the focus of the new moon, that's pretty heady stuff. It's actually pretty heart stuff. It's very heart-centered stuff. And when we look at the sheer number of twos involved, there's a lot of energy about love here, and loving yourself, loving everyone around you, even those people that you have issues with, and seeing love from a higher perspective, right? And being able to speak from a place of love, because ultimately 12 is on the throat. All right, so let's take a look at it from the more mundane astrology level. I don't know if I can use the word mundane, but if we look at it from the astrological level, what does the energy of a new moon at Gemini bring to us? Well, we can look at all the different things that Gemini rules to find out where we might see new beginnings. And one of the very important places we begin is in the energy of motion and movement. Gemini is an air sign, and air moves. And so there is a sense then of movement through body, through mind, through soul, and through all of the elements. This is an energy that doesn't really sit still. It keeps moving, and therefore it rules things like trips that we take, the cars that we take our trips in, transportation of all kinds. And like, for instance, this is very mundane, everyday kind of stuff. What if you needed a new car? This would be a great time to set the intention for some kind of new vehicle to come your way. The energy in Gemini is also about learning and teaching. So it's education. It's using your curiosity to, what I always call, pulling threads, right? Where one thought leads to another, or one piece of information leads me down a pathway. And so we are really into information at this particular point in time. And the internet is a part of that, being able to find whatever it is we need. I spoke to this the other day. For those of you who are millennials, so if you were born in the 1981, 82, all the way through the early, maybe 1999 to 2000, you're what we consider a millennial. And the millennial group grew up basically with the internet. Maybe the younger ones for sure, the older ones certainly came across it very young in their lives. And at this point in time, they are masters at finding information, right? I sit here and I see comments at people like, Suzanne helping other people here. Tammy, yours is open. So obviously, she's gone and gotten the information and been able to look at the information and share that with people. They are masters at that. What they're missing in the millennials is the connection to other people that help bring the picture together. So there's a caution here in a Gemini new moon that it's not all just about the information, the facts that you get. There's got to be the connection, the emotional piece to it as well, that brings it all together for us. So Gemini is also a sign that we always think of as communication. So writing and speaking and listening and teaching are all engaged here. Socially, we think of Gemini as the social butterfly. They're quick thinking. They are at the opposite end of Sagittarius, where Sagittarius has a tendency to be blunt, Gemini has a tendency at times to be more tactful, or let's just say less blunt. They think before they speak most often, and there's an energy of acceptance that goes on here through the energies that we're talking about. There's love energy, but there's also acceptance energy. And let's see, let's look at the body, because I noticed a lot of people lately, including me, hay fever. In the body, Gemini rules hay fever. It rules the things that we have two of: two hands, two wrists, two arms, two shoulders, except the legs. It doesn't rule the legs. It rules the lungs and the nervous system. Several friends of mine right now, one has bronchitis, one has pneumonia, another one has a cough. It seems like they're needing to look at Gemini issues in their lives. So the body is really an indicator then sometimes of the sign. And then that takes us to the chart, where we can then look and see, well, what are we under? What pressure are we under? And what do we need to do in order to move through that energy, to heal ourselves? Okay. Any questions about that kind of stuff? Mimi says, makes sense, as we are working with the spiritual heart connection with source, and the physical heart, the human experience. Absolutely. Absolutely. And let's see, Cindy says, I need to get a human design reading, hoping to be able to do this soon. I recommend that for everybody. I must go back to my own chart at least once a day, looking at what did I learn about myself, right? Because before I became a human design astrologer, I had a human design reading. I mean, how could I really even think of teaching other people without knowing myself first? And knowing yourself isn't something that happens just in a vacuum and one day, aha, I know myself. This is a process. And at some point, one of my teachers in human design, and I can't remember who was it that said this, said that, the conventional wisdom in human design is it takes 7 years to undo your conditioning. And I'm at year, what is this, 2018? I'm in year 4 of all of this, and I'm still finding places where I haven't not been living authentically. But then that's because I am under this constant self-scrutiny, and that's what this is really all about. How can I really live my best self, my most authentic self? And that's the vision for all of you as well, is that this is a thing that kickstarts your own journey to living from your authentic self. And it isn't just one day we have a reading and you know it all. It takes time, it takes effort on your part to keep doing the dive, to keep looking deeper, and to keep, pulling apart who you are and putting yourself back together in the highest and most authentic way possible. Okay. New moon in astrology is interesting. Remember yesterday I started the conversation about the triple goddess and then the triple shadow goddesses with Eris, the dark moon Lilith, and the black moon Lilith. Well, wouldn't you know that this new moon is sextiling Eris, trining the dark moon Lilith, and also trining the black moon, or in conjunct, meaning a very scritchy, adjustment-oriented connection to the black moon Lilith. So all around the chart, we are also receiving a trigger to our shadows. And that'll be an interesting time. I think we've been being triggered for a long time in our shadows. Maybe with this new moon, we are able to set the intention to consciously engage with the shadow, to be able to understand better what it is that has been holding us back, or to understand ourselves in a better way. And that means also Pluto's involved in this particular new moon, because it is in conjunction with the black moon Lilith. So there's power, this idea of empowering ourselves. And this new moon is also then in an opposition to the galactic center. So there's a lot of energy particles beginning to really stream forth out of that galactic center. It's like the stream is always here, but now we're kind of aligning ourselves with it. The earth is aligning itself with it. And that means we are also becoming aligned with this new stream, or this constant stream of consciousness that's coming into the planet. It's our choice whether we connect to that and decide to move forward in our lives, but we are connected to it nonetheless. Cindy, makes so much sense. Oops, I cannot read that now. Hold on. There we go. Makes so much sense. Like the physical body itself, it does not just heal itself from illnesses that we may come in contact with. It takes a lifetime to find and put all the pieces together that work with each of our own unique designs. Yes, it is a lifelong job, right? The difference is once you have a reading of this, it's a map. This becomes a map, the map to living your authentic life. And that's the cool thing, right? Cool thing. Okay. Good morning, Crystal. Hey, lady, can't wait for my next chart. Awesome. I think you mean your follow-up. And, or I don't know, call me, talk to me, email me. So what I want to do now, because I've gone on long enough this morning, I'm going to draw a card and I'm going to ask that the cards show us the highest and best. Well, that didn't take long for the new moon. And it was, I don't know if we've had this card before. It's number 13, sacred number, and it is fork in the road. Fork in the road. Like that card, it's got a lot going on. And is that a llama? That is a llama, a falama llama, with an owl on its back, then and antlers on its head. This ought to be interesting. And is that a monkey? That is a monkey or a baboon or something. Number 13. So a lot of symbols in this. I see the, directional thing here leading us somewhere, fork in the road. So let's see what that means. And by the way, when it fell out of the deck, it was up, right? So number 13. A lot of numerological connections that we're making this morning with the number 2. The 22 is also, in there. 13 now. Fork in the road, essential meanings, time to make a decision, considering the consequences as you prepare to act, owning up to your obligation to make a necessary choice. So the oracle's message says, every choice has a consequence. You've arrived at a fork in the road and are being asked to come to a decision. By the way, this is for the new moon. This is what the new moon is representing for us. Will you further your dreams by choosing left or by choosing right? Will you take the road less traveled or the one well-worn by others who have come before you? This is your choice and yours alone to make. Circumstances and other people will not make it for you. Be present and do not avoid this junction, for it is an important crossroads. Take heart, as no matter which path you choose, you will have a rich and meaningful experience. The relationship message here is you've reached a moment of truth in the evolution of your relationship. Which will you choose? To open up to the possibility of love or to remain isolated? To go deeper and commit to mutual passion or to walk away? This is a time to take responsibility for your truest desire and follow it. Be honest with yourself about what you're willing to do, invest and give, then choose. You cannot make a wrong choice. If you move forward with a relationship, know that it will be based in truth and authenticity. You will have made a conscious decision rather than simply hanging on because you don't want to be alone or ending things because you're afraid of the intensity of genuine connection. All roads lead to the lessons you must learn in your relationships. Regardless of the decision you make, it will place you on the path to a truer experience of the heart. Great message. The prosperity message from the card says, you've come as far as you can on this part of your journey, and now you're faced with a choice. Inherent in this choice is the need for change, for evolution, and for a bettering of your circumstances. Narrow it down to just a single question. Who do I need to become, and what do I need to believe in order to live a life of prosperity? Answer honestly and from the heart. Then the decision about which way to go will be effortless. Know that abundance is all around you. Choose to see. It will be easier to settle on a direction, for the way will be made clear by your intuition, which knows how to steer you toward your well-being. I think that's a great card for a new moon. And how very fitting for Gemini, right? To have a fork in the road, to have two choices and to have to choose one or the other. Again, this is from the Wisdom of the Oracle deck by Colette Baron Reed. I love these cards. They are very profound. They never fail to deliver an interesting message, a very soul-centric sort of message. And I hope that message meant something to you as well. So don't forget, tomorrow I will not be on air in the morning. And you can wish me fun and games with my first grade granddaughter, Amelia, who I will be playing with tomorrow. And don't forget, next week on the 20th of June, which is next Wednesday, I will be on air live in the morning, but I have a special show at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. East Coast time that day with a friend of mine who is a feng shui consultant and also has learned Chinese astrology. And there is so much more to Chinese astrology than I ever knew, right? All I really thought about was the fact I was an ox and that was my Chinese symbol, and so much more to see there. So I'm really excited to be able to introduce her to you. And she will also be offering a discounted Chinese astrology reading for everyone. So that'll be next Wednesday, the 20th at 4 p.m. And I will be on the air. So you miss me tomorrow, but you get a 2 for next Wednesday. So there you have it. So I wish everybody a happy new moon tomorrow afternoon. Oh, before I go, oh poop, I got to tell you guys this. One of the most interesting things happening tomorrow at the same time as the new moon. At the moment the new moon happens, it goes immediately into void of course. Never seen that happen. I'm sure it has happened. It's the first time since I've been really charting the new moon, the void of course, that I've seen this. So remember the new moon happens at 12:44 p.m. Pacific Coast time, 3:44 p.m. East Coast time. Immediately the moon then is in void of course until midnight 020 the next day. So almost the whole day from the afternoon on, the moon is in void of course until, and let's see, that would make it at 3 something in the morning for all of you on the East Coast. And isn't that interesting? A gateway, a portal prompting us to start something new, and a void of course that tells you stop sign or a yield sign or a slow down sign, right? Wait, not yet. And it makes me feel like that maybe with this card, this fork in the road, that it gives us some breathing room to consider that direction that we actually want to head into. And for those of you who are wondering, the power of the new moon is a 48-hour window. So just because you don't take action the first moment of the new moon doesn't mean you've lost the momentum. You have that 48 hours to be able to do that. And in this case, we have a little over 12 hours to cool our jets a little bit, to consider what we want to do with that fork in the road. So thank you for staying with me long enough to be able to get that one out, because that was unique and interesting. In the meantime, all of you have a wonderful day. I love you all. We'll see you on Thursday morning, and we'll talk more about astrology, human design, the gene keys, and anything else that we want to talk about. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. Mwah. Bye for now.